So welcome back. So this is the Dharma talk for the retreat. So this retreat is about finding calm during difficult times, finding your true refuge, which is you, which is inside of you. It's not out there. And I'm going to talk about some ways to find your true refuge in this Dharma talk. And, you know, the world really needs more people that aren't lost in their mind, that aren't lost in fear. And this talk is about helping each one of us be that person, be that one person, to be yourself really without the fear and the anxiety and the mind that just clouds our view. So today I'm really going to talk about what's called right view, which in Buddhism is the first of the Eightfold Path. And right view is really important because it determines everything else that follows it. It determines right action, right speech, right mindfulness. So right view is essential to being a true refuge, to being in your calm center, to seeing the world as it is. So there's a couple ways I'm going to talk about how to cultivate right view. The first is mindfulness of mind, or watching our thoughts. The second is helping our trauma psychology settle down, our conditioning, our personality conditioning, our traumas settle down. And the third is developing the quintessential aspect of right view, which is the absolute view, the view from the spiritual heart, the ultimate view. So we go from mind view to the one spiritual heart view. So I'll be talking about that today. As I said, the first of the Eightfold Path is right view, and right view in Pali is samaditi. Samaditi. And it's really this sense of clearing away confusion. Samaditi means to clear away confusion, to see clearly. In the Dhammapada, which is one of your handouts, the first verse is, all that we are is a result of what we have thought, is founded on our thoughts, is made up of our thoughts. So our thoughts are really important, and how we work with mindfulness of mind is really important. It's the first verse of the Dhammapada. It's the first of the Eightfold Path. Right view. And really, this first step of right view is, looking at how we create our own suffering. Our mind can really become a suffering chamber. It can become its own suffering chamber. And the number one cause of this is not getting what we want. Our mind creates a lot of suffering. And Paul, you can show this slide. Not getting what we want. This is what it looks like. We're trapped in what we see and want. That's the first cause of when we get lost in the mind. So you can take the slide away now. And even if we get lucky enough to get what we want, we're always doing one of two things. We're either seeking what we want, and when we get it, then we're guarding it. So we're always seeking, guarding. We're guarding and seeking constantly. This is a Buddhist truth. Your mind's always guarding or seeking. So it's really right view is to find a way out of that cage, that trap, of this mind that's always trying to get what it wants and keep it. And as we know, it's impossible because things are impermanent. The Zen monk and poet Ryokan, he says this is a poem from him. If there is beauty, there must be ugliness. If there is right, there must be wrong. Wisdom and ignorance are complementary. Illusion and enlightenment cannot be separated. This is an old truth. Don't think it was discovered recently. I want this, I want that, is nothing but foolishness. I'll tell you a secret. All things are impermanent. I'll tell you a secret. All things are impermanent. That's from Ryokan. Wanting, foolish. Wanting things not to be impermanent, foolish. So another cause of the mind suffering is our mind looping. Our mind really does a great job of looping. I don't think some of you might know about this, right? It loops. And fake news is such a great metaphor. Like fake news just kind of loops, as we in America have seen over the last few years. So your mind does this. It does the same fake news loop, like I'm no good and I can't do this, or I'm a failure, I'm broken, whatever the loop is. And it keeps going on and on and on. And the Buddha had a really nice sutta about this in the Majjhima Nikaya number 54, is a sutta about a dog it finds this bone that's been like laying out in the desert and it's all bleached and there's nothing on the bone, but the dog's like gnawing at it, trying to get something out of the bone because it just believes there's something in that bone. And eventually it's gnawing on the bone so long, its own gums start to bleed because it's gnawing so furiously. And then it's like, oh yeah, now I really got something. The bone has something here for me. So it keeps gnawing harder and eventually it gets it. The bone is empty. It has nothing here for me. And the dog is looping on the bone and gnawing it. And we do this with our own thoughts and our own beliefs. We just really hope we're going to find something to make us feel good and to satisfy us. And like that dog with the bone, we never get it. And we might even get our own blood and sweat and tears. I think that's it. But eventually in this sutta, the dog gets it and in disgust walks away from the bone. And we can get it and walk away from our mind. It doesn't have to be with disgust, although sometimes that can happen. We can walk away from our mind. Zen Master Bankei says, we get born every minute by taking our minds seriously. That's how you and I are born, moment after moment. You don't need to wait for rebirth after you die. It's right here now. We get born by believing our thoughts. We lose ourselves to what we're thinking. We lose the me, the real me, to this bone that we're gnawing on. It's nothing. So the beauty is when you wake up to right view, you find the real you. That's not all these thoughts and swirling and looping. And, you're not like this Mobius strip of looping of Amita or Carol or Paul. You find the real you. You find the vibrant you. Another way we loop is opinions. And 2,500 years ago, the Buddha even did a sutta called the Yoga Sutta, where he talked about how people were just so stuck and looping on their opinions. And remember, this is 2,500 years ago. He talked about the bond of opinions. He said, We are obsessed with opinions. We delight in opinions. We have affection for opinions. We have intoxication with opinions. We have thirst for opinion. We have fever for opinion. We have attachment to opinion, craving for opinion. This, monks and nuns, is called the bond of opinion. And remember, this was before Fox News. Thirst for opinion, fever for opinion, intoxication. This was even before news. So really what we're learning to do in this first part of Right View is we're disabling the Twitter account of our own mind. Just pull the plug. Okay? It's all right. You'll still continue. Things will still happen. But when you can, just disable your Twitter account. You'll be surprised at how few thoughts you need. You really don't need a lot of thought to get from A to B. And, this applies to self-thought, not just thought out there, but we have this endless Twitter account about how we talk about ourselves. And talk about looping. The quintessential loop is, especially in Americans, is our negative self-talk, or people in the Western world do this negative self-talk. I can't do it. I'm no good. I'm broken, like I mentioned before. So Paul, maybe put up the sushi slide. I really like this little cartoon because it exemplifies how the mind loops. So this is just a simple how to make sushi, right? First, you're trying to roll the sushi, then damn, you spoiled it, like you do everything. Sushi's like your life. You do everything wrong. You start a lot of things, but never finishing anything. And then you end up in this fetal position under the sushi table. Nobody loves you. And I love this cartoon, and you can take it away. Thank you. I love this cartoon because it really shows how the mind just starts with something really simple and then it loops into this negative self-talk till you're under the table in a fetal position. And hopefully you can just remember that, the insanity of that, right? And right view is to come to your senses and going, that's nuts. Just be with the body in the now. And one way you can help do this is, it's the looping is here, right? It's the radio station of your mind. So if at all possible, just drop down into your heart. Your heart is the GPS device. So you're like in a car, right? It's in one of those automatic driving cars that they're going to have in 10 years. Your Google car. And the GPS will be a GPS. It'll just take you there. Your heart is taking you to freedom. It's inevitable you're going to be free. It's inevitable. And the radio station in your mind can play this horrible, under the table when the fetal position was sushi. It can play whatever it wants. It can play I'm a good person. It can play I'm a bad person. Meanwhile, your heart is the car driving you home to awakening. The GPS is not affected by the radio station playing, just as in a car. The components of the GPS of your heart will take you to your destination, no matter what station's playing up here. I mean, it's nice to have a good station. You don't want a radio station you don't like. But if you find you have one, let's come back to the GPS. You're going to get a station. If it's an obnoxious one, it'll change eventually. But you're being brought back home regardless of the songs that your mind is playing. So just drop from here to here. That's right view, GPS of the heart. The last thing to say about mind, and the reason why the mind often isn't really, it's not right view. The mind is always behind time. It's always a lag of time. Because mind is not a direct experience. It's a mirror. It's an interpretation of what is. It's a commentary. So even right now, you can have a direct experience of me, and then you can have what you're thinking about me. And that's a slightly bit behind time. And the more you meditate, you really start to see this. The mind kind of just barely misses experience because it's behind. That's why the thoughts are never right view. It's almost like if you're reading a menu and, oh, that's such a good meal, and you're reading about it. But when you're really body in the now and tasting it without the thoughts are extra and they're great. There's nothing wrong with them. But the mind misses experience because it's slightly behind, because it's mirroring, it's reflecting what is rather than you just being what is. And you're always being what is. When you're not with the thoughts and when you can put them aside and put them aside, you're always just being life, because you are life. You are life. So you're always just being it. And yeah, thoughts are part of it, but they're really kind of this, almost like the commentary in a sports game. Remember Howard Cosell? Some of us are old enough to remember him. You just saw what was happening in the game. You didn't need that voice. So trust that you don't need the commentary. You can just grok it, just be it. Words are a symbol for something. Language is a symbol. It's a symbol. Language is are symbols we've all agreed on, that we got indoctrinated in as a culture. But words and language are a symbol for what? For what? Just this. Just this. And just try this for a second as a practice. What if there were no more words and thoughts, like period, in the world? For you right now, what if there were no more words and thoughts? Right there. Just this. And then, of course, the words and thoughts come in, but notice the you without the words and thoughts. So I told you could never grab words and thoughts again. You'd be fine. You'd just be the direct experience of life. And there'd still be action and movement and maybe words. It's a funny thing, this mindfulness of mind. We're actually undoing everything we learned, and it seems so simple to undo, but it's not. And it is. And really, when you see all this, it's empty phenomena. Buddha had a phrasing, empty phenomena rolling on. And the word Dhamma Chanda, it's really a wonderful Pali Buddhist word. And it's just this basic will of existence. It's not even your will. It's just this thing that's moving on and on and on and on. Sort of why we get reborn, just this basic will. And You can see that, and it just happens without words. It's like empty phenomena. And it's always really wonderful when science mirrors Buddhism and Buddhism mirrors science. So you have this Dhammachanda, that's just this basic rolling will. And then in the Abhidhamma, which is the Buddhist psychology system, you know, these scholars found that in 1 second of our life, 1 second, there's 5,000 changes happening in your body so fast that, you know, your consciousness can't even be aware of it. The mind and body and changing 5,000 beats per second. And the Buddhist scholars, they knew this, they saw this, and they documented it. And now, you know, they didn't even have scientific instruments to know this, but now it's so cool. You know, these people studying quantum physics now, they can see all this, that there's this nothing that is something that's empty of self. And right view is just this rolling empty phenomena. And in a minute, I'm going to show you a little video clip of this. And this video is done by David Tong, who works at the University of Cambridge, and he's what's called a theoretical physicist, and he's been studying quantum field theory. So this is high science, and a Dharma friend sent me this video, a Dharma friend who's also a scientist. Thank you to him. So bear with us, you know, it's science here, but what I really love about this video clip is it really gives you a visual of the depth of the Dharma of nothingness and emptiness and this constant connection. And that our bodies themselves are just these bundles of rolling wave energy.
Applies to every single other particle in the universe. So there is spread everywhere throughout this room something that we call the electron field. Okay, it's like a fluid that fills this room and in fact fills the entire universe. And the ripples of this electron fluid, the ripples of the waves of this fluid get tied into little bundles of energy by the rules of quantum mechanics. And those bundles of energy are what we call the particle, the electron. Okay? All the electrons that are in your body are not fundamental. All the electrons that exist in your body are waves of the same underlying field. Okay? We're all connected to each other. It's like, you know, the waves on the ocean all belong to the same underlying ocean. The electrons in your body are the ripples of the same field as the electrons in my body. Okay? There's more than this. There's also in this room 2 quark fields. And the ripples of these 2 quark fields give rise to what we call the up quark and the down quark. And the same is true for every other kind of particle in the universe. There are fields that underlie everything. And what we think of as particles aren't really particles at all. They're waves of these fields, tied up into little bundles of energy. Okay? So this is the legacy of Faraday. This is where Faraday's vision of fields has taken us. There are no particles in the world. The basic fundamental building blocks of our universe are these fluid-like substances that we call fields. All right. Okay. So what I want to do in the rest of this talk is tell you where that vision takes us. I want to tell you about, you know, what it means that we're not made of particles, we're made of fields. And I want to tell you what we can do with that and how we can best understand the universe around us. Okay? So here's the first thing. Take a box and take every single thing that exists out of that box. Take all the particles out the box, all the atoms out the box. What you're left with is a pure vacuum, and this is what the vacuum looks like. So what you're looking at here is a computer simulation using our best theory of physics. It's something called the Standard Model, which I'll introduce later. But it's a computer simulation of absolutely nothing. Okay? This is empty space. Literally empty space with nothing in it. This is the simplest thing you could possibly imagine in the universe. And you can see it's it's an interesting place to be, empty space. It's not dull and boring. What you're looking at here is that even when the particles are taken out, the field still exists. The field is there, but what's more, the field is governed by the rules of quantum mechanics. And there's a principle in quantum mechanics, which is called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which says you're not allowed to sit still. And the field has to obey this. So even when there's nothing else there, the field is constantly bubbling and fluctuating in what's, quite honestly, a very complicated way. Okay? These are things that we call quantum vacuum fluctuations. But this is what nothingness looks like from the perspective of our current theories of physics. Okay, it's worth saying that this is a computer simulation. It looks a little bit like a cartoon, but it's actually quite a powerful computer simulation that took a long time to do. But these aren't just theoretical. These quantum fluctuations that are there in the pure vacuum are things that we can measure. There's something called the Casimir force. The Casimir force is a force between two metal plates that get pushed together basically because there's more of this stuff on the outside than on the inside. And these are real. These are things that we can measure, and they behave just as we would predict they would from our theories. So this is nothing. And this brings me to the more mathematical.
So I hope you enjoyed that. Just seeing this moving nothing. That's the Dharma in motion. That's that 5,000 changes. And the Buddha knew this. Rolling nothingness, empty phenomenon rolling on. How great. So when you're worried about life or government or politics or my health, just remember this rolling nothing, moving on. Unplug from the fake news. It's just nothing. So that brings me to the second part. So that's all about being mindful of mind, unplugging from the Twitter account of your mind, coming back to the heart. So the second piece in right view, second piece is really about meeting the emotional, the psychological, the trauma, kind of what I discussed earlier this morning. And it takes a little different, we still bring mindfulness and awareness. We still have that when we have emotional issues or traumatic issues. But we also have to bring in compassion. So it's awareness and compassion. And the Dalai Lama talked about, if you were just with awareness, it would be a little bit cold. So we bring in compassion because it brings in the warmth with the awareness. And especially with trauma, it's like two wings of a bird. Awareness and compassion bring in this witnessing with this warmth. And we really need that for healing trauma. Being a trauma therapist, I don't just tell people to go to the emptiness and the empty phenomenon rolling on. That doesn't work so well. And they learned that. Early on in Vipassana, they tried that, the whole thing back in the 80s when I first started practicing with any emotion and any trauma. It was just note it, and they didn't even acknowledge that trauma exists. So there was quite an uphill battle for 20 years of some of us with trauma histories to help the teachers know that you had to bring awareness and compassion to people going through difficulties. So, a first thing to do when there is, say, difficult emotions is to really name it. to acknowledge it. And that doesn't mean just noting it, just labeling it, but to see, yeah, we're going through this. So, what I did earlier today, just naming that our nervous systems are fried, naming that we've been in a grief cycle really since the beginning of the year, and we've all been trying to hold it together. And we're in this complicated grief cycle that has many components. So maybe Paul would put up the stages of grief chart. So you have this in your handouts. And I like this chart because, probably a lot of you are familiar with the stages of grief. We start with denial, anger, fear, there's a lot of stages here. This is a nice chart, shows you lots of different things. Then depression, and then getting up to hope and readjustment. But what's really nice over here on the right of the chart is, but what it really looks like with the stages, it doesn't follow a linear pattern. It's just all over, one moment we're hopeful, the next we're back to denial, then anger. So it's really important to show this chart so you can normalize. We're all in stages of grief. We're all in stages of grief. This is what it looks like, folks. And you're not doing anything wrong. It's going to be the squiggles over there. And look at this chart and remember, when you start feeling crazy, just remember we're going through several layers of grief. And Paul, you might want to bring up the other chart with the collective trauma. So this isn't in your handouts. I was going to put it in, then I decided not to, but if you want, you can email me and get this. But this is trauma for, when whole cultures, like say a whole culture goes through a tsunami or a big change. And this is collective trauma. And it has a little bit different phases. You've got the warning, then you've got impact, and we often have kind of heroism and altruism in the beginning, which, you saw that with COVID, sense of shared survival, trying to make it work. And then, you hit this downside where you're getting anger, disappointment, red tape, loss of support, exhaustion, and some of us are at that place. It's normal to hit these peaks and valleys. And then notice that recovery is like a long way out, after all the exhaustion and the frustration, then you might hit recovery. But what's interesting about this chart, this is for a single incident trauma for a culture. And we've got many, many incidents of trauma here that are multi-layered with, again, this ambiguous loss of no end in sight. So this is when there's an end in sight. So Paul, you can take away the slide when you're ready. Thank you. Again, what I mentioned earlier is with ambiguous loss, trauma therapists know it cues in danger in the body always when you don't know. Think about a parent who's lost a kid, their kid is missing. There's always a sense of hypervigilance and danger until they find their child. A death is a lot easier than an ambiguous loss in some ways. So we're always cued into this danger and unsafety on many levels with this pandemic. Again, like I said, it's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, 1,000 pieces, and you don't have a box top. You don't even know what the picture is you're putting together. And as Americans, it's really hard, or Westerners, we really want to know, what's the picture look like? Where do I go? What do I do? And then, right? That makes it even harder. So we're in this period where we have to just label that we're in a period of suspension of everything we know, ambiguous loss where we're going to be cued into danger. And unfortunately, during loss, to bring awareness and compassion to this as right view, we've lost the rituals of our life that bring us safety and comfort. Our kids being in school, being able to hug friends. I was realizing last night, like, really to truly hug someone, not like this fake hug with a mask on and you're doing like one arm. Really truly hug someone. It's been since like March. When you live alone, that happens, right? And we've lost the hugs and we've lost our ability to go to the swimming pool and all kinds of things we did to regulate ourselves, routines, connections with loved ones. What really struck me during this pandemic was Joe Biden's grandkids wanted to run up and hug him. And he said he had to say no to these wonderful children, just, hey, grandpa. And he had to say no. And when I heard that, it just broke my heart. We can't do this spontaneous connection. We're mammals. We're mammals. We love to connect and feel each other and look into each other's eyes as a way to regulate. So our rituals of regulation, of mammal regulation, have been broken. And I'm telling you all this, I'm going on and on about this, so we can bring tremendous compassion to ourselves and to each other as a culture. We're in a culture of dysregulation right now. And the compassion can just make some space in there for that. That's what awareness and compassion does, the wings of a bird. They make space for us not to be wrong with how we feel, for us to have space to heal what we're going through. And it will heal. Everything heals. Like I said earlier, the human heart is vast and everything resolves itself. Look at me, trust me. The human heart is vast and everything resolves itself. We will get through this, but to get through it with awareness and compassion. And I like to think of it, it's almost like we're leading our scared little kids by the hand. And I don't know, when you were a kid, you ever had a fear of something, right? Like a lot of kids are afraid there's a monster in their closet or under the bed, right? And that's a simple version of this, but when we get afraid and tense during these difficult times, you take your little kid by the hand. And no matter how many times you need to lead him or her to the closet, you go, see, we'll turn on the light in the closet. Nothing's there. 2 minutes later, no, something's there. As Dharma, awareness, compassion people, we take the hands of our little kids. Okay, let's look again. I'm still here with you. We'll look 1,000 times if we have to. We'll be scared 1,000 times. But the key in all this is I'm here with you through it. And often, most of us as kids from trauma families, we didn't have someone that held our hand. I want to cry when I talk about this, and walked us through with compassion, however long it took. We'll get through this, kid, together. No, you're not crazy. It's okay. You still think there's a monster in the closet? Fine, let's look again. This just tremendous, endless compassion that's as wide as the world for all your parts during this time, because you see how complicated the grief is with those charts. And those of us with trauma, we get what's called a trauma piggyback. So you're going to be scared. All your little kid parts are going to come up, and you're going to have to hold their hand and walk them through with infinite patience and love and connection. And it's okay. You will get through this. We all will. And in the end, we'll be talking about, wow, it was so cool. I cultivated this. This is what I learned during this time. You'll be telling others. This will be your legacy, what you cultivated during this time of trauma. Unhooking from the fake news, unhooking from the mind, dropping down into the wonderful, infinite awareness and compassion that is you. Let it come online right now. We can be impatient with ourselves. I noticed the other day, like, I had a really difficult family with a very violent father. And when you're a kid, you can't leave home and all this violence is happening, right? And I felt trapped as a kid. And so when COVID started and I was stuck in my house, I really had to walk my kid parts through, like, okay, we're trapped, we're stuck, but that doesn't mean we're trapped. It doesn't mean, and then you have this raging president that reminded me of my father. And it was really great practice to cultivate this endless wisdom. Okay, yeah, you feel trapped, but I'm here with you now. It's 2020. We're not trapped. We're not trapped, and I'm here with you. So if you do get a trauma piggyback like I did with that, again, it's the same thing. It's bridging with love and connection with your wise self. Your wise self is so vast, and it will heal the trauma. And it's bridging, like we saw in that Captain Phillips video, where she's helping him through that trauma step by step. Look in my eyes. It's safe now. Breathe. You're okay. We're doing that with ourselves all the time with these many griefs and many traumas. It's really how we stop the looping. Awareness and compassion that we loop. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, she's a wonderful storyteller and she just embodies the Dharma so deeply. She says this: our life might be tough, but the heart can remain as innocent as a baby's blanket. So yes, our life is tough right now, but can you maintain this compassionate connection with a heart that's as innocent as a baby's blanket? That's you. That's awareness and compassion. And I have a brief little exercise on this to help you see what is this depth of you. So if you want, you can close your eyes, but just feel whatever was your worst trauma, most difficult experience of your life. And you don't have to delve into it, but you kind of know what it is. Just feel that. What got you through that? What got you through? What in you got you through that? And just feel that in your body right now. Something got you through that horrific difficulty. What was that? This is you. Feel that. And this is here now. It was there then. It's still here. This grace, this presence of you that got you through. And really just register that in your body, what this resilience of you that got you through that trauma. And is still here, this resilience. Still here to help yourself whenever you need it. And even broadening that and feel, what is it that gets you through all your days? What's gotten you through to your life now? There's some days where you're like, this day will never end. What got you through all those days that felt like they would never end? What was that got you through? Feel that in your body. Register that in your cells, spread that around your brain. What got you through? What resolved all your problems? What magic in you gets you through to the next day and the next? What is that? No matter how difficult, you always get through. Feel that. Breathe with that. Spread it around your body and your brain. That's you. And don't underestimate this. Don't underestimate this. I mean, I've been practicing for 35 years. And I've seen two things happen in these 35 years. Not because I'm a great practitioner. I just had a really deep, heartfelt intention, and I've never stopped. I've never given up. I've dedicated my life to it, often imperfectly. But I just kept going. And the two results based on my psychology, I'm talking about psychology still here. Severe depression that had me under the sushi table, like constantly. I'm a loser, I'm a failure. 20 years of Dharma gone. No more of this debilitating depression. And it was severe for me. I really was laying under the sushi table. And then the second thing that's coming online more and more now is the trauma stories are just leaving one by one. They're just almost like apparitions that are just disappearing into the mist. And I never thought that would happen. You know, you kind of think trauma stories are just part of your body and they just will keep coming. And they're actually just they're emptying out all the trauma stories. It's really beautiful to watch. I had this vision the other day that it was almost like when I was a kid, one time we broke into an abandoned house, an old farmhouse in the Midwest, right? And there was nothing in there. You know, it was an empty house. There was like a comb and maybe a pie tin. And what was cool about this house was you knew somebody lived there and you saw like remnants of it, but you didn't know what the stories were of those people. And more, like that's what I'm finding here. The house is just, it's like, I don't even know what the stories are anymore in here. It's like an abandoned house, and maybe I find a comb every once in a while and pie tin. But stories are walking themselves out. And again, that's just the miracle of the Dharma. That's the miracle of this thing that always resolves even your most difficult day, that got you through. We're walking ourselves out of that trauma, or life is walking us out of that trauma one story at a time. And one of my teachers, he had a really funny image. He said, you know, even the self is, you know, being undone. And he said, you know, this idea of me is like a block of ice. We're holding this block of ice in the Hawaii Ocean, which is warm, right? And going, no, this is me. I want this. I know, I love this me. And you're holding this block of ice. And meanwhile, it's melting. And the water, the ice of you is becoming the ocean around you, right? This rolling waves from that video clip. No, I don't want to let this me go. And it's fine. It's like all those trauma stories leaving that block of ice of the me perspective and all the stories that go with it. It's just going to melt into the ocean, drop by drop, story by story. So you can hold on to it as much as you want. It is melting. If you keep practicing, it will. That's the beauty of the Dharma. Okay, the last component of right view. So we have working with our mindfulness of mind, those looping, the fake mind states, unplugging our Twitter account of our mind. We have bringing awareness and compassion to our trauma, just letting it leave, letting it melt. walking the kid through it with love and patience. And then we have absolute view, emptiness view. It's the freedom view. You know the story of Aladdin? He goes into a room and he's just there to get the lamp, i.e. freedom. You're awakening. You're just going into the room to get the lamp. But guess what? You open the door to the room and there's all these things in there. Don't touch anything. Don't look. His instructions are don't look at anything. Don't touch anything. Because they're seductive. So you're looking for the lamp and there's a giant panda. Oh, no, don't look at the panda. That's your mind. That's your story. There's $1 million. We're just here for the lamp. Absolute view. Don't get too distracted by everything that's in the room. We're just here for the lamp. The Dhammapada, verse number 348. Let go of the past. Let go of the future. Let go of the present. And cross over to the farther shore of existence. With mind wholly liberated, you shall come no more to birth and death. The deathless is possible. So the lamp, what we're in this room for, is the deathless. And it is possible in this very life. We're not here for all accoutrements, for all the interesting objects in the room. We're just watching from the center. And the key is to just come into the center and the quiet stillness of you and watch politics, government, trauma. Just watch this empty phenomenon. This is the ultimate view. Comes back to Paul Tonk's video, the quantum physicist. It's just, there's nothing here. Don't get seduced. Ultimately, we're watching the movie. We're watching the movie. We're here for the ride. And this is kind of a nice little comic clip. A man named Bill Hicks, he was a comedian, actually in the 70s. It's amazing how relevant this little clip is from the 70s. And he died of pancreatic cancer in his 30s. But he was a very wise and funny man. So Paul, when you're ready to play this.
There is a point. Is there a point to all this? Let's find a point. Is there a point to my act? I would say there is. I have to. The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride. And we kill those people. Shut him up. We have a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. Look at my furrows of worry. Look at my big bank account and my family. This has to be real. It's just a ride. But we always kill those good guys who try and tell us that. You ever notice that? And let the demons run amok? But it doesn't matter, because it's just a ride. Time we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns. close yourself off the eyes of love. Instead, see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace. Thank you very much. You've been great. I hope you enjoyed it.
So, just a ride. Don't blend with your dream character. Don't blend with the Twitter account. Come back to your body, your heart, your GPS, your body in the now. Breathe. You are this now. Don't think you have to make it happen. You are the now. It's all Dharma now. Reality never stops. Your witness never stops. You don't need to make a scary movie. Don't need to make any movie. Just be the body in the now, silently watching and witnessing and curious about the ride. The ride. Silent witness, here now. That's you. It's not all your thoughts, your time lag thoughts about it. It's not your trauma reactions. Silent witness. And what's beautiful is when you really are the now, it's so amazing. This you will never happen again. You and I and all of us and each one of us here on this wonderful video call, it'll never happen like this again. There's now and now. You're getting recreated every moment. It's so amazing. We're like sand mandalas that never will be again. You now, then you now. How cool is that? That man died in his 30s. He was just now, now, now. You and I are just now, now. Enjoy the ride. Never to be here again this moment. It's so simple, and yet we spend our whole life trying to undo our narrative. And all you have to do is just drop here into the now. Back to the rolling waves of phenomena, the absolute view. The last thing to say about the absolute view. It's the view of the context, not the contents. Like he was saying, it's a ride. Not the contents you can be looking at, my thought, my emotion, my views, my opinions, my perspective, my awareness, my love, my contents. What's the context of you that knows all of this? Keep coming back to that and that and that. The Buddha said from the connected discourses, just as a monkey roaming through the forest grabs hold of one branch, then lets go and grabs another, then lets go and grabs still another, so too that which is called mind and mentality and consciousness arises as one thing and ceases as another by day and by night. So stop, whatever your mind's context, the absolute you, the absolute you. Again, those rolling waves of the ocean, of phenomena, of you as a wave versus a particle. In the Tibetan, they have what's called a radiant sutta. And verse number 136 says this: consider all the pain and all the pleasure you have ever experienced as waves on a very deep ocean, which you are. From the depths, witness the waves, rolling, bravely rolling along and changing, beautiful in their self-sustaining power. Marvel that once you identified with only the surface of this ocean, now embrace the waves, the depth, the undersea mountains out to the farthest shore. That's you. And Leonard Cohen says this. He has a nice little slide about becoming the ocean. If you don't become the ocean, you'll be seasick every day. That's a good reminder. Come back to our spiritual heart. Our context, our ultimate context is this GPS, spiritual heart. Become the ocean, the perspective of the ocean. And Adyashanti calls this the gaze of eternity. So when you drop down here versus here, the gaze of eternity, and you can spend the rest of today and tomorrow, what's it like if you had the gaze of eternity? When you're looking at everything, when you're making your dinner, when you're getting ready for bed, gaze of eternity. And it's not your gaze, it's the gaze. Don't think it's my gaze of eternity, it's the gaze of eternity. Same gaze for me as you. It's one gaze of eternity. And what we're doing is we're dislodging the me perspective to just so you're just seeing that. That's when enlightened beings they just see through the gaze of eternity, not the me perspective. The me perspective gets slowly edged out, like that trauma I talked about in the empty house. Just gets slowly edged out. That's the benefit of practice, and just keep doing it. You'll see. It's like you can be the eye of the universe. Eye of the universe. And when you're in this greater perspective, there's only one perspective. Only one. And I want to lastly just share kind of an experience I had about this in the last year practicing. So I was just outside and I wasn't on drugs or anything, just so you know. And I was holding this pen and I just thought, wow, everything's in this pen. It was kind of like the Thich Nhat Hanh eating meditation where you see all the beings responsible for your food. And I saw the beings that were part of this pen, but then I saw all the lives that they fed all their children and then their children's children, and then everything in the universe was in this pen, like everything. Why not? Of course, everything was right there in this pen. And I was like, I'll be damned, like a simple pen, everything's right here. And then I saw that I was the pen. You are the pen. You're not just looking at the pen, you are the pen of everything colliding as one thing in you, in this one perspective of the gaze of eternity. And when you really start to see this, you're the pen. It's mind-blowing. In fact, your mind can't grasp it. It's so big. It's like exponential, multi-level dimensions all colliding as one view. It's impossible to even hold the me in my view. See, at that point, it's irrelevant. The me in my view, the mind perspective, it's just irrelevant. Doesn't even matter. Now that's right view. That's right view. Everything, 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 everything. You are everything. And when the me perspective goes, it's like we've been looking at the sky through a straw. We take away the straw. And then you just are the sky. Direct experience. My teacher, David Thomas, says, you are drinking infinity through the straw of your perception. So we're trying to drink it. Oh, I can't get enough infinity here. But when you take away the straw of your perception, here we go. You are the infinity. You are the infinity. Take away the straw when you can remember. Or there's no you to take it away. Just let it fall away. You don't need the straw to drink infinity. You can put your head right in it right now. Right now. Right now. The trees are your lungs. The earth are your feet. This camera is the eyeball of existence. Right here, right now. Your heart embraces all. Your heart can know all. Because love is. Love is. That's experience without the straw. And it's inevitable, you'll notice. I guarantee it, it's inevitable. Why? Well, St. Francis said this. What you are looking for is what is looking. What you are looking for is what is looking. It's inevitable you'll know this infinity view because you are it. The me perspective straw was only just a piece of the infinity view. So that, my friends, is the end of our talk, and just enjoy your infinity view. Wherever you find yourself, if you're drinking infinity through the straw of your perception, fine. But remember, it's here for you. It's here. You are it. And enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. Thank you. Thank you for listening.